Hello, and welcome to Texas Southern's Barbara Jordan Mickey Leland School of Public Affairs inaugural launch of the Juneteenth Texas statewide website and calendar celebration. Today, we are very honored to have Dr. Reverend Max A. Miller. Dr. Miller, would you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. Hello, I am Dr. Max A. Miller Jr., the pastor of the Mount Hebron Missionary Baptist Church, as well as the president of the Baptist Ministers Association of Houston and vicinity. This Juneteenth national holiday celebrates the freeing of those who were enslaved in the United States. It represents and epitomizes how emancipation was tragically delayed for enslaved people in the deepest reaches of the Confederacy. I am here. I greatly appreciate it. I am honored.
Dr. Reverend Max Miller, would you tell us what Juneteenth meant to you growing up here in Houston or in Texas?
Growing up with Juneteenth really was not as important as it is now. It is not as important back then because, like many of us, we were not raised to really celebrate Juneteenth. We were raised more so to celebrate July the 4th. And once you really learn your heritage, once you learn your history, you find out that Juneteenth is larger than life. It's a time that I wish I had back only to celebrate it more than what I did when I was growing up. The main thing about growing up and what Juneteenth meant is because of the struggles that we had growing up, because of the hard time. I lived in this last hurrah of what we would call then modern day slavery, where I thought we were actually rich because we had two holes in the outhouse, not knowing that the out northern house belonged to us. I lived growing up realizing later in life how important and how dangerous it was as we spent 70 to 80% of our time in Wharton, Texas, of how there was quicksand between our house as blacks and the Anglo house that were white, so that we didn't even have an opportunity to play with their children. So I believe it was sort of covered because we were still living in a time where we did not own anything, that we had to pluck cotton and pull corn just to live, not to get ahead, just to stay afloat. So Juneteenth, when I look back in retrospect now of me growing up, I would not change it at all because it is the makeup of who I am today, what I am today, and even more so, the same land that we had to farm when I was a boy. I now own that land, and believe it or not, I'm working that land, making it work for me, and now all of the work that is put in is not going to the man. It's staying with this man and his family. So I thank God for allowing me for what I did not know growing up, but what I cherish now. And that's what Juneteenth meant to me growing up. The struggles that made my strength, the actions that activated my activity, the trials that give me testimony, and the work ethics that we were grown up to learn. If a man don't work, a man don't eat. Not knowing that was Juneteenth back then, But all of that was instilled in a boy that's city grown with country flavor.
So, as an adult, what does Juneteenth mean to you?
It means the world to me. I am one of those who are not afraid to make the comparison between what I mentioned before, whereas July the 4th has always been the large celebration, and Juneteenth has always been the junior to July the 4th, but not so in my family. I don't even hardly celebrate July the 4th. I celebrate in large numbers. I've done history on Juneteenth. And now as an adult, it means everything. It's our heritage. It's what make me know that sometimes God have to bruise you to bless you. That now I look at it. I even understand the demographics of political arenas because of how Texas did not even want to acknowledge that we were free, that they waited as long as they could. And we all know that it took 2 years before the word got to Galveston. But let's not be blind. Even after the word got to Galveston, they still waited before they were free. And the year afterwards was the first Black celebration for being free. So as an adult, now what I've lived through and I read and study and do deep history on, Juneteenth is next to Christmas as one of my most favorite, awestruck, awesome, didactic holidays that I cherish because it's where we've come from. And let me say this, many times we don't know, but just because God is silent does not mean God is absent. He was there all the way. He was there all the time. And now I understand what the old folk, who I have now become, used to say. He brought me from a mighty long way. I thank him as an adult that he brought us from cotton gins to Mercedes Benz. I thank him that he brought us from having 2 holes in the outhouse to having 2.5 bathrooms and restrooms. I thank him for allowing us now that when we used to have to hit the scrub board and feed our clothes through the dryer, that's what we called it then, and hang them on the line, that now God have allowed us and blessed us that in this world and this nation of mass incarceration and mass racism, we still must admit that we are living better now than we ever have before. As an adult, I cherish it. I read, in fact, because Juneteenth is coming up, I already have some more information right here that I'm studying and going over, not for this interview, but I'm doing this because I love to make people aware. And I believe that God put me in such a place, in such a space for a time as this, that a small town boy that was on the brinks of the creek where folk got baptized in the Canaan is now in the city lights of Houston, Texas, where I'm able to not only talk about Juneteenth, but talk about the shady stuff that happened when I was growing up, how they were snatching people when slavery was supposed to be over, and snatching them and beheading them. As an adult, I don't care what they try to take out of the history books. I don't care what they would not be taught in school. They can take away that, but they cannot take away what I know and what I can teach my children and grandchildren at the house. I think as an adult, they waited too long to make it what it should be. And let me say this, every adult that have an ounce of black in them, whether you are considered an African American, a Black American, a Negro, whatever if you have an ounce, I want to encourage you to be proud to have that ounce. Because what the devil meant for bad, God meant it for our good. And always remember, all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord, who are called now. They have to be the call. And I would say I would not take anything for this road of what Juneteenth means as an adult and how God have allowed me to have different platforms to educate. Please, let's educate our children and our grandchildren on this great celebration. Remember this, when July the 4th started out, we were still enslaved. And when men and women think more about a country than they do a human being, it's something wrong. Celebrate your heritage. This is what Juneteenth means to me as an adult.
I really appreciate that. And you've also explained what it means as a national holiday. I got all that flavor at the same time. So as we come to a close, which is regrettable, but would you like to give an endorsement for what Texas Southern's school is trying to do here?
Let me say this prior to giving that endorsement. Let's remember that Texas, even though they waited 2 years after us, let's remember in 1979, Texas was the first state to make Juneteenth an official holiday. And all I can say about making it a federal holiday in 2021, what took you so long? Because we've been here. We've not only been here, you ought to know that it was blacks that built that port of Houston, that it was blacks that make up right now the largest voting bloc. What took it so long to make it a national holiday? So with all of that being said, I would love to endorse. I would love to endorse. I greatly and really appreciate you for making this happen and allowing me to be a part. And this endorsement from two mighty names, two historical giants, such as Sister Barbara Jordan and Brother Mickey Leland. I want to endorse Texas Southern University. I want to endorse this School of Public Affairs and this inaugural launch. I want to say Texas Southern should be proud of this launch. And I do not only launch by mouth, but any and every time you have something of this nature, I don't have to be the keynote guest speaker. I don't even have to be the interviewee. You make sure you dial the Mount Hebron Church and the Baptist ministers in. If it's financially and you need us, we're going to be there. If you just need me to come out and carry water, I'm not a celebrity. I'm only a servant. And I thank you. I salute Texas Southern. I salute you, Ms. Higgins. I salute what you're doing. You have my endorsement, and anything I need to do, even after this is over, to ensure the simplicity, but yet the seriousness of this endorsement, you have it from me. Dr. Max A. Miller Jr. will never be shilly-shally with you, but I will walk in the trenches with you. To God be the glory. not for some things, but for all the things he has done. May God bless you and may God keep you, will constantly and forever be my prayer.
Thank you, Dr. Reverend Max Miller. I really appreciate it. And may Elohim with Yeshua take you into the graces of what was prepared for us from the beginning. Thank you so much for this interview. You're always in my heart. Thank you.
Thank you.